Welcome back to Starfish Coaching. I'm Eric Lee. Today for my Founder Success Secret series, I have the pleasure of interviewing Flavie Dufrenne of Great Design. She's a graphic designer, someone that I've coached with, and she's a growing entrepreneur building her business. And what we'll be doing today is just talking about the struggles of the creative entrepreneur, someone who's creative, and someone who needs to run a business. There's definitely constant struggles there that we have. So let's introduce Flavie. Flavie, welcome to my podcast. How are you this morning?
Hi, Eric. Thank you so much for having me. I was very much looking forward to talking with you. I'm good. I'm happy to be here. So thank you.
Yeah. So just a bit of introduction to our audience. Flavie is in my business network group. She's a terrific graphic designer. Her own company is great with a lot of R's in there. Great design. And I've had the pleasure of coaching Flavie also, and that was a very enjoyable experience.
It was. Thank you. Yes, great design, 2 R's, because that's where the fun is. Yes. I was happy to. You actually, as a coach for me in my business, you planted well. I had a lot of seeds planted before, but you're the one who were able to put everything into action and be like, okay, Flavie, we're doing it. This is now. It is happening. And I'm very much in my brain. I'm very much thinking about everything. Like, nope, we're doing it. So thank you for putting everything into action because you got me started.
No problem. That's why I'm here. My mission is to help creative entrepreneurs like you. And, that's actually what this podcast is about. And thank you for coming on. I want to explore with you just the constant struggles that we have as creatives, and I say we because I'm also a designer. You're a graphic designer. I'm an interior designer. So yeah, there's lots of, I guess there's a unique struggle with creatives and business, right? Because it's the left brain, right brain struggle. Do you feel that in your business?
Yes. I don't know if you have that, but sometimes, well, most of the time, I have moments where all I can do is create. That's all I'm interested in. I just want to create. I just want to start things. I like starting new things, new ideas, implement, talk to people. And sometimes all I want to do is not think, just do and do all the admin and stuff. And I don't want to create anymore. I'm not there. So it's hard to balance the left and the right on a daily basis. That's what I like about being an entrepreneur is that if it's not happening, I can jump into admin or do something else or do something a little less creative to have my mind have a little rest for a few days. While we're in a company, you have to be productive all the time. You have to have a new logo. You have to do this. And even though you're drained and you don't have anything in you anymore, you have to. And that's when you end up doing things you don't even care about. You don't understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. And that's what I like about me. So it's more for me about finding your balance and your moments and your cycle in your brain activity when you're creative and when you're not.
Yeah, I think, when I think about my process and how I do it, it bugs me because when you're like in your creative space and you're in the zone, for me, when I'm designing, I don't want to be bothered. But then because you're running a business, it's like, oh, right, I got the next meeting or my staff wants to come see me and now I got to deal with this. And it takes you out of that flow, let's call it, right? Where you're just like in the vibe, in the moment of designing. So what I've done is, as a tip, I guess, for everyone, I block out a chunk of time, undisturbed time. And usually for me, it works better on a weekend where I don't have the day-to-day distractions, right? The text messages slow down, the calls slow down, the staff aren't there. Like today, Saturday morning, it's great. You have a different headspace when it's in the weekend. Now, some people don't want to work on weekend. I guess for me, I don't relate work and personal as separate. I'm very much blended, so it doesn't bother me as much.
Well, work is your favorite activity, so you can do that like anytime. For now that I know you a little bit, I know that that's what keeps you alive. You like doing things, helping, creating, and be everywhere and doing everything. That's your thing.
Yeah, no, for sure. There's no separation. So with that, then there's no stress because I'm not worried. Okay, so I'm doing some stuff that I love on the weekend, and it just happens to be work.
Fair. But I agree
Right.
with you on. I try not to work during the weekend because, well, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm also single, and I live on my own and work at my own place. So if I don't go outside, it's just me. And most of the time, people, because they know I don't have any kids, and it's just me. They tend to abuse and make me.
Right. Right.
So I try to not work during the weekends. But I agree that my favorite time, I like to wake up early. I used to not. But the thing is, this moment of these few 2 hours that I can have, where the phone is not ringing, nobody's starting working or asking you questions, it's just you, and you can do your thing, and no one's bothering you.
Yeah, exactly. And those are precious times that you should block and protect for I call it the higher level visioning work, whether that's visioning for your company, like working on the business rather than in the business, or visioning for a creative concept. It's just a different headspace.
And I do think it's how we got this myth of creative people being working at night because.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, when everybody, because also after I used to do that when I was in a company back in France. So no, not in the company actually, after the company, because like when you work with your clients when French is like it can be 5 or 6 p.m. Sometimes a little bit later, but when they're done and they're going home, like nothing's gonna add up to your day. So that's when you're like, okay, now I have all the informations and I can work on it, and that's easier to work at night when it's like quieter, nicer, no one's bothering you. You can have a drink, nobody will judge you.
Right. Yeah, no, for sure. It's a different space. Let's explore what it was like for you going from, I guess, either working for someone, because I think that's where you started, to saying, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to start my own firm. What was that transition like, and what was going on in your head between the pros and cons, the fears, all of that stuff?
Well, when I was in school, you don't know how it works. My school was great at making us creatives and thinkers, and that was awesome. But we knew nothing about the world. We knew nothing about like how it works for real, how much we're supposed to ask for any projects, yeah, nothing. So I did 2 years, 3 years in that company, and that was amazing. I had lots of responsibilities, and well, what happened is that at some point, I started another on the marketing side. I started another site it was event agency, so it was all about those like big events for companies. But I had the travel side that I put together,
Okay.
started, got organized, and everything. And at some point, I had no challenges anymore. I was just doing things. No, but every time I was sending illustration or anything, everybody's like, okay, great. So now can you do like everything else? So all the badges and so yeah, no, everybody's like, yeah, what you do is great. Okay, I need to go somewhere else now. So
Right.
yeah,
So you felt tapped out in terms of challenge.
yeah,
Okay.
everything was
And
rolling.
did you think, oh, why don't I just go to another agency or a bigger or someone that does something different, or you just went straight to, okay, I'm going to start my own agency or design company?
Well, with everything that was happening at that time, so I was in a long-term relationship that ended. So I was kind of like, I needed a break. So I just quit.
Okay.
And I was on my own for a month, just needed to slow down. And a friend of
Right.
mine approached me and was like, "Hey, you're great. You have like few years in an agency. Let's do something together." So we started our
Okay.
own company. So it was great.
Okay. And he or she was a designer also?
Yes, graphic designer. It's a he who I met at school, and
Okay.
we did that for a year. And we're like the let's say we said, okay, let's give us each other a year, see where we at at the end of the year, see like the goals and everything, if we're happy, if it works, and from there we'll see where we go. And it was going great. We had great projects. We had a little space in Paris that was so nice and cute. And after a year, realized, well, it wasn't. It was fun, but it wasn't viable. So
Okay.
we split.
Why is that?
Uh, well, so I realized that me being a woman, maybe, but like, and very nurturing, I was doing the creative side, but also the admin. I was getting the clients in, I was doing the work, and I was giving like half of it to him, and I'm like, no, thank you.
Right. Right. Okay. So the I guess the agreement wasn't set up equitably between the
And
two.
there was no agreements, and that's the thing. If now I know if I get into a partnership with anyone, and I think it goes like with friends, with anyone. First off, don't work with your friends unless you really know them.
Yes.
But when they're friends, even more, make sure that you know what you do, why you do it, put everything down, agree to it, agree on how. I've heard that somewhere in a conference, and I was like, oh my God, yes, kept it, pinned it somewhere. When you're happy and you're starting and you full of hope and everything, that's when you already organized the moment that everything will fall apart and you'll need to split.
Yes.
And not at
That's
that
right.
time. And I'm like, yes, I would have loved to be there. Because like we're not friends anymore. He didn't take it well, and it was like a lot of things happening, and yeah.
Yeah. There's can't be too much said about having the proper agreement up front before the relationship goes sour, right? Like I always recommend that for my clients is set out all the parameters, think about the worst case scenario. That's what lawyers do best. And, we, as much as we don't like lawyers, that's their skills. They think about the worst scenario ever. And we're like, nah, that's never going to happen. But it's better to talk about upfront than later on, right?
Well, lawyers are good when you use them as anticipation. Then
Yes.
when you use them at the end, it was like, oh my God, like what's happening? Like, and yeah. So anticipation is good, I guess. So,
Right.
and yeah,
So now that you've been on both sides, running your own business and actually having a partner, plus working for someone, would you say that there's certain elements about working for someone, like certain qualities about people that no, you should just stay working for someone, and then if you're running a business, you kind of need these qualities to be successful? What are your thoughts around that?
well, I just realized there's a third option actually that I did my last 2 months before coming to Canada. Is I was freelancing, so I was on my own. I had my own project, but also I was doing a few days per week in an agency.
So yeah, that's another option, I guess. Are there different qualities that you need for either one of those, or like all of those options?
You have to be proactive.
If you're running your own business or a contractor, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Even more so if you're running your own business.
Oh yes, yes. You have to be proactive. You have to be able. Well, you have to be able to learn from what's happening. You have to be always like for me. The best is when something is happening, instead of being like, yeah, well, that's okay. Too bad. I'm like sitting down for a second. What happened? How can I make it better, or how can I make sure it won't be repeating next?
Right.
Not repeating your mistake, learning from them. So that's the biggest. I guess as an entrepreneur, you have to have an overview, and that's the problem when you're
Yes.
creative. You're so into what you're doing. Everything you're creating is your baby. When somebody is
Right.
saying like, "Oh, I don't like you," you're just like, "What? No." And with the years, you realize, "Oh no, I made that because it's not my baby anymore. It's our baby first, because you're collaborating with your clients. So it's not just you being like, ta-da."
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a very common struggle for entrepreneurs. Actually, creative entrepreneurs. It's a common struggle because, like you said, we're creativity is a birthing process, right? It's from your idea, you give it birth, and it becomes reality. So of course, you have this kind of control perfectionist attitude towards it. But then when you apply to business and there's a client at the end of it, you have to learn to let that go and say, okay, it's not completely mine, right? And yeah, a lot of the creative business I work with, they have to kind of cross that bridge before they can be successful on the business side. So I think it's just a natural growth of a creative professional, right?
It is, and I don't know if all creatives are like this. Maybe I don't know. Maybe you'll relate or not. But personally, I used to be a very big people pleaser, and I was seeking for external validation all the time. So
Right.
since I had those two, every time like it was the result was so important to me that I
Hmm.
didn't care about everything else. Money, I didn't care. Clients' experience didn't care. All the things. At the end was like showing my baby, showing my creation, and if they didn't like it, I was like, but I put everything I had. Okay, how can I make it better? And I was doing things I didn't like about my design, changing the colors that made no sense because I really
Right.
wanted them to like me and like my art, my design. And yes, when you get rid of this and you're like, okay, this is the color you need because this is the industry, and they say,
Right.
oh no, I like red. Okay, fair. But remember, we're not talking to you. You are not the client. You are not the person we want to target. This is your
Right.
target. This is what we want to say. This is how it works. So when you make it logic and you can explain and you're not seeking personal, for any personal validation, it works. For me, it works better.
Yeah. No, actually, you bring up a really good point, and I help my designers with that in my company. Is yeah, they people, especially when you're new in the creative industry as a designer, you attach your personal worthiness, if you will, to your design. And if a client gives you any bad comments, it's like you take it personally, emotionally, psychologically. And yeah, like you said, a good designer is someone who can detach from that and say, look, it's not about me. It's just about what they want. And this is my design, but it's not a reflection of me. And you need to separate that to be a strong designer, especially when you work with clients.
I have a question for you because, well, you have a team. You have a team of designers. You have a team of creatives. I know that because I have a friend in your team that I'm
Yes.
going to see after actually. So that's funny. I'll get all the details, all the behind the
There you
scenes.
go.
But what I've heard,
Yes.
she's very happy. I've heard your
Mhm.
team is really happy and they're doing great jobs and you guys are thriving. So you're doing something good, right? How do you? Well, what I've heard from her, she's been there for a few weeks, so it's still recent. But she has the sense of team. She said that
Yes.
so it's not one person is failing. There's no I on team in team. Do you
Mhm.
consciously do something about it? Are you aware of it? And is there something you're doing with your team that is a good thing as a leader to take on? Because it's just me, but maybe one day I will have people working with me. So
Yeah.
what would be?
That's a great question, and it's definitely not accidental. Things don't
Yes.
just no, it's definitely conscious. And I would say that's probably the most important thing for any business owner or team leader. I actually, yesterday I was up in Whistler doing a offsite training, team building training for a company, a client of mine, 8 people, and they're just about to grow their business. And one of the key things is team. So yeah, it's not just for creatives, but all businesses that have people as resource. And really, every company out there have people as their resource. That's the most important resource in any company. It's not the machines, it's not the processes. A company is nothing without good people, right? And as business owners, the most expensive thing is to have turnover. So if you build a good team, it cuts down that turnover. It's better for profit. It's better for morale. It builds culture. So yeah, I can go on and on. That's another podcast for it. But I'll share with you. Yes, we do design it consciously in my company. I believe very much in team building, in culture, and if I, as the business owner, can create a happy workplace where people love to come to work in the morning, why would they leave? Right? Like that's the key thing. And then everyone benefits because you wake up jazzed about your workplace. You can't wait to go in there to meet your colleagues. They're more like family than work people. Um, the business owner, and my managers are happy working with these people. There's just something cool and something really rewarding about working with someone who you love to hang out with. And that's kind of where we did that. And yes, it is designed from the top down. So myself with my managers, we have a very strong bond. And then of course the managers down to the team level, they have a strong bond. We have lots of team building stuff like that. So yeah, that's a whole other kind of thing I can get into. And I do that for companies, but it's a great question. If you're ever thinking about branching out and building a team, even if it's just like one or two people, that's still important, because at one or two people, actually, you have even more risk. That's one of the reasons why I chose to grow my company, is because I got to a point like when I started on my own in a basement office, and I got busy, so I hired, one employee, and that's just the natural way of doing it. And then I hired another one, and it grew from there. But why I decided to grow, one big reason was because of risk mitigation. What I mean by that is, if you're my designer and you either leave because of whatever reason, or you're on vacation, it's okay, back to me now. And I'm like, oh, shoot, now what do? I have all this work, right, that I'm contracted for, and I can't do it. So then that means two designers, because now I can mitigate risk. If they're away or if they leave, I have another one. And if I'm away, they can fill in. So now there's a bit more sanity. I'm sure as a single business owner and entrepreneur, you can't go on vacation, truly. You can't just say, okay, phone's off, that's it. And that's just a natural growth of any business, especially if you don't have experience in building businesses. You kind of start organically, you learn, you fail, and then you start to put these systems in because you realize, okay, you got to do it differently, right? And that's why I'm able to take time out from my other companies that I run and be a business coach and advisor, because I've set up the systems there. I've put in good people with good team, and now I don't have to worry too much about it. I can just free up my time to do other stuff.
And I'm talking about systems because you're the one who told me about systems. Like, Flavie, you have to have a system. I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, yeah, systems everywhere. I'm like, oh, wait, what? And it works. I'm at that moment in my business where, so I've been, basically my story is I've been doing graphic design forever since I got out of school. So it's been, I want to say 15 years, but a bit more, maybe, yeah, whatever. It's been a long time. And for the longest time, I was just freelancing here and there, and I was making a little bit of money, didn't have any time, then had a lot of time, but no more money. And it was like, oh, that's what happened. When I met you, I started going to BNI because I wanted to actually learn that from other entrepreneurs and be able to have more like a steadier income. And for the longest time, I was so afraid of growing. And I think for a creative, that's one of the biggest problem, because when it's just you, it's hard enough to be you being creative, being also in charge of the admin. I'm not even talking about bookkeeping, how like it's insane. It took me forever to understand, and I'm not sure I really understand what's happening. I have good people helping me.
Right.
But in the meantime, I kind of have to grow. Everybody's like, oh, you should have a bookkeeper, a VA, and everybody's like trying to add to my team. And in the meantime, it's scary.
Yes.
Because, so what, I mean, I'm there. This is where I'm at. I kind of feel that I'm stable enough to start adding to my team, at least there, to help me and be able to concentrate a little bit more on the creativity. Because that's what we like to do, and that's where we're having fun. And I guess that's why sometimes we're drained, because we have to put up with all the admin. But in the meantime, how do we do that? What's the best way to start like adding people to the team?
Right. Okay. So is that like when you say there's a fear in doing that, is it just the not knowing how that's causing the fear, or are there other blocks and obstacles in your mind?
Well, not knowing how, but most like I've never onboarded anyone. So I don't even know what they need. I don't even know. I think I know it would be a good thing to have those people, but I don't even know why. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
it feels like it feels like it's a natural growth and everybody's doing it. So like, oh, maybe I should too. But in the meantime, why? Because I'm doing everything. I'm supposed to do everything. I know it would, I don't know. And I don't even know, how do you know when it's the right time? Because like, you're going to pay that person. So that money is not, see, it's like everything that is, there's basically, it feels like it's easy, but you know there's way more to it.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. That's a very valid fear, and I would say every business owner, regardless of they're creative or not, go through that. And I would say that maybe creative people have a bigger struggle with it because they know that's not their strength, right? They're creative, but that requires financial calculations. That requires the logic side of it. That requires the business skills.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a bigger black hole that we're jumping into, right?
Yes.
And I've been there myself, exactly. And you know, there's a few ways of doing this. You either just jump in and learn and fail and learn again, which is what I did, or you can bring in people who've done it to kind of show you the way to shortcut that, right? And that's why actually for my Starfish coaching, that's exactly my mission. I create Starfish coaching, and the tagline is to help creative entrepreneurs actualize their goals while aligning with their purpose. Because the problem as creatives is we just want to do what we're made to do and what we're passionate about, but we've got all this infrastructure that we have to set up for our company, yet we don't know how. So it's a struggle, especially for a small business, because the cash flow isn't there. So I recognize they're not able to bring in an expert, even if they wanted to, right? Because there's a cost to that. And with Starfish Coaching, you know, I have my YouTube channel, I have my podcast, and those are free advice that I've set up so that people, especially startups and small companies, can tap into my knowledge base. If they can't afford me on a one-to-one level, they can take those tips. And because my mission is still to help creative entrepreneurs.
Do you still, do you still do the group thing that I did with Andre?
Yeah, the Goals Lab, that's another thing.
That was really good. I really liked it. That was really good to be with Andre because, well, people don't know, but Andre and I, we do very different businesses and we're at not the same level of business as well. So that was great. He had to deal with things that I'm not there yet, but I wasn't even thinking of those things. So seeing how it works and how you were helping him, I'm like, oh, it's doable. So somehow it opened me a way of okay, maybe I can have people working for me. Maybe I can do things this way. And that was really, really good. I really liked it. I like group things.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's set up for exactly that. My Goals Lab coaching. One is more accessible from price point, right? Because I'm helping a group. But then also, I don't want to make the group too big. I like that intimacy where you're just with a few people, and because you do get deep in your business, so there's a confidentiality there that you have to share. But yeah, you saw me working with Andre. He's in the HVAC business, completely different than yours. Yes. But a business is a business. So I'm able to help his business structure the same way that you and your business structure evolves.
Yeah, no, I learned so much there with you and with Andre.
I'm glad. That's, as a coach, that's what makes my job satisfying.
And I do think for me, I've done it once, but I know I will do it again, and I know I will that's when I did it, I didn't know. I remember, I don't know if you remember the conversation we had, but I was I was just being a creative. I didn't I was like, oh, I want to be more of a business of a creative, more of I was just a graphic designer, not kind of a graphic design studio. And so I didn't know if I wanted to do the transition. I didn't know if I wanted to grow. I didn't know if it was possible. I didn't feel like it was possible. I felt like the whole time the way I was living was the way creatives have to live, and that's how we do it, and that is it. You have to struggle and you have to starve sometimes. So when I met you and I did it, I had no idea what I was doing. It helped me so much on getting organized, the foundation of being a business. And I know next time I have a real goal from me being okay, this is what I want to achieve, because it helps so much on getting the action. For me, that's you're activating us, and that's what I loved so much. Yes,
so
please.
Before we kind of end off, is there any other tips, comments, thoughts around the struggles of a creative person having their own business that you want to share?
Oh, I can share the questions I'm kind of asking myself. Should I have, because right now everything I do is I basically change my hours for money. I do a project, I work on it.
Yes.
But what about how you guys call that? The income that you don't like. Basically, you do one thing and you sell it,
Passive income.
passive income. That's
Yes.
what I'm thinking. Because the thing is, we have a saying in French: you don't keep your all your eggs in the same basket.
Right.
And that's the thing. Maybe it is time also to start like checking this out and see how I can. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely ways to do that. How it applies to graphic design, like I've got some thoughts already.
Of course.
But yes, that's it's a curse. Once people about business, I'm like, oh yes, okay, I can do this and do this and do this, and my mind just keeps on going. That's kind of why I chose to become a business coach and advisor, because I know I've got ideas that I can help.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's not a curse. It's actually the opposite.
Yeah. But yeah, I think like right off the top, it's a good way for sure, because it doesn't require you to be always trading your hours for money, right? So, just some ideas. I think as designers, our intellectual property is the value that we bring. So whether if it's me designing a house or you designing a brand or a graphic or whatever that is, you can think about how to kind of turn that into something that repeats itself. So, in your field, I'm thinking like maybe merchandising, right? I forget the artist's name, but it's this collection of cups that I think it's a she designs, and it's just this black bunny. But it's really cool graphic, just like black silhouette, solid black on white cup, and it's very cool. Like that's very stylish. I would buy a mug like that. So what you're doing now is you're creating merchandising, or you're creating something that can regenerate itself, and that's the key for you to think about. Okay, what can I do creatively that I can regenerate and sell, on an ongoing basis? And that designer actually now she has an online store. I think she must have started very small, but now she has an online store. She's branding out to. She's taken this bunny and make it more iconic, and she's applied that icon into mugs, into T-shirts, into baby wear. It's endless where you can go with that. It's interesting, and that's just an example of what we can do as creatives, because we're good at creating. We love to do it. So if we can get royalties and repeat passive income for it, then why not? Right?
Yeah, yeah. And another thing, the last thing I will talk about that is that I'm learning right now, and I need to implement. I'm still having a hard time. Is a friend of mine call it the bubble time. So basically, it's the time that you schedule for yourself as you are your own $1 million client.
Oh, yes. Okay.
You is the moment where you work in your business, on your business, not in your business. And that is really hard, because every time I try it, at some point, I don't know why I'm doing it. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? And
Right.
so that's the thing. And I think it's good to have goals, because that's the thing also with creatives. We tend to just be everywhere and be happy about it. So every time I have a goal and I focus on it, I nail it. So that's the thing. I'm just lazy, or I just don't know what goals is doable.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I think that's a struggle, especially if you're a solopreneur, which means you don't have staff, you don't have other people holding you accountable. I hear that a lot. Creatives tend not to be goal driven, because we're more, we want to just be fluid and create. That's the stereotype, at least. So if you're not goal driven, but you have to run a business which requires goals to make it work, then that's a struggle. And yeah, I guess my Goals Lab package does address that. That's where I've kind of put in a Goals Lab accountability structure to help people drive to their goals and get to the end. Right? So either do that or get an accountability partner is something I would recommend. So even if you're a solopreneur, then find a friend, find a colleague, and say, hey, look, I'm working on this goal. Can you keep me accountable? Right? And do a regular check-in. That's a good tip. Just do a regular check-in, whether it's a daily, a weekly, or monthly. And just say, okay, I'm going to check in with you whenever, and I'm going to tell you whatever it is that I need to do for my goal. And now, because you have a third party that you're checking into, it's much harder to just let yourself off the hook and slack off. So that's a good tip I can give.
Oh, and rebondir. So doing a rebound on what you just said and like keep the ball rolling. One of the things I do, and I really love that moment. I do have the mastermind with you and a few other entrepreneurs, but I have well, we were supposed to be more, but there's just the two of us with the core people, and we meet every month, no matter what. She's an illustrator. I love her dearly. She's so creative and great. And we meet every month and we talk about like the struggle, what's happening. And we share Slack. And so on Slack, we can at any time it's like, hey, so what do you think? But that client's asking me this, what do you think? And then you're not just on your own making decisions, because sometimes you just need somebody to balance things off.
Yes.
And that's all you need.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's a great tip. As a solopreneur, like you said, it's lonely sometimes, right? Like running your own business, because even as a small business, it's lonely because there are things that you can't share with your employees, right? You can't share down, you can share up. So then it is a bit lonely. But if you set up like what you're doing, set up a support network, you can bounce ideas off, whether it be a colleague, like in your case, or a mastermind group, or a coaching community, or a mentor. Set that up for yourself. Jim Rohn has said that you're the average of the top 5 people that you hang out with. So if you look at it, depends who you hang out with. That's actually who you'll become. Right? You're the average of those 5 people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So be careful who you hang out with, because if it's toxic and negative, you're going to go that way. Versus if they're positive and growth and supportive, then you're going to go that way also. So yeah, that's my tip for setting up your support network.
What I'm realizing right now is something I would have loved to hear when I started is as a creative and as a freelancer, I always thought I was a free agent. So basically you're just a random person who's working. I've never seen myself as an entrepreneur. I would have loved to have someone be like, no, what you do is business. Because creativity is like, most of the time people are like, oh yeah, you're having fun, you're playing, it's not serious. Right. I would have loved to, and BNI and you guys, that's what you taught me. And you were because you're working with creative, you're one of the first people to be like, no, this is serious, this is business. You're supposed to make money. No. And yeah, that makes a difference. And I guess a lot of people, because it feels like creativity is accessible because you don't learn to be creative, you are. So for a lot of us, when we start, it doesn't even feel right to ask for money. You know what I mean? So I guess to all the creatives, you are entrepreneurs. This is real. This is business, and you can make money out of it, and you can thrive. You can be happy. You can be creative and have fun, but also make money and thrive. So yeah.
That's a great tip, and we'll end with that because I could not have said it better, especially for this podcast, because that is a huge struggle that creative entrepreneurs have. So yeah, thank you so much, Flavie, for your time. If you want to get in touch with Flavie, tell the audience what's the best way to reach you. Oh, well, work in progress, but I'm Flavie from Great Design on Instagram. Instagram is the best way. It's Flavie Dufrenne. I'm pretty sure you'll put my handle somewhere, or greatdesign.com. Great. Thank you so much, Flavie. Thank you. I appreciate your time as always. Thanks. Thank you for watching this episode of my Founder Success Secrets. If you're a fellow creative or designer and you feel these struggles, please leave it in the comments and share how you came through it. Or if you've got a question about it, feel free, put that in the comments or reach out to me. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel to help support this. I like to use my YouTube channel to bring business tips and also interviews like these, which make it so valuable for the entrepreneur who's trying to build their business. Thank you again for watching. I'm Eric Lee, and I can turbocharge your success.